Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Property Doctor podcast. This week is a very interesting episode. I've got my good friend and business partner, Philip Jordan, speaking to a really interesting fellow called Mark Shaw. And Mark is quite well known among property people as being one of the most legitimate people out there. His lifestyle investor training has helped many people discover the dark arts of property. And what do I mean by that? Essentially, it's creative ways of doing things. Mark is a very interesting chap on his own. I encourage you to go and have a look at his profile on social media, and you'll see from his profile picture just what I mean about how interesting he is and the kind of mindset that he applies to things, because you can't have a body transformation quite like Mark's without having the right kind of mindset. Anyway, this podcast is more to do with Mark, the things he teaches, the way he looks at things, than it is kind of similar to other podcasts that he's been on, which all tend to be quite generic and formulaic. With this one, I wanted to do something a little bit different and have more of a fireside kind of chat feel to it than a straightforward question and answer thing. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Please enjoy the questions, like, comment, and all that good stuff. And if you've got other questions for Mark that you think might be useful, then feel free to type them in the comments and I'll see if I can get him to answer them. Anyway, all for now, please do enjoy. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Property Doctor podcast. And it's a bit different this week because you'll notice there's more than two of us. But most importantly, we're joined by Mark Shaw, who's well known as the lifestyle investor. Now, I don't endorse people, as you'll know, on the podcast, but I must endorse Mark. Philip and I have done business with Mark in various ways, and we've also done a lot of learning with Mark because he does things in a very creative, very interesting, and very different way to most people. And the way he approaches property is really inspiring, so I'm sure that we'll get a lot out of this episode. But before we delve into all that, thanks for joining us, Mark. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you very much for inviting me, and good to see you again, Phil.
Thank you. It's nice to be asked to be honest with you both. It was unexpected. I know that I'm sometimes a social hand grenade for Andrew, so beware.
It depends how heavily medicated Philip is as to what. So, just to set the scene, because quite a lot of my audience will be new to property or looking at the best ways of doing things. And I've got to say, the way you approach stuff, if I'd have known the way you do stuff right at the beginning, I can definitely say that the trajectory of what I'd done would be completely different. So, first of all, how did you get into property in the first place, Mark? And how would you describe your way of investing and its purpose?
All right, okay, that's an interesting one. Property. My first property was actually bought with the student overdraft and student loans back in university. I actually took over a family member's mortgage. They were in financial difficulties. And my first tenants were actually my housemates when I went to law school and they went off to the law school in Nottingham. So that's kind of how it all started. But even back then, so in my 20s, a good 30 years ago, what I was reading at the time was all pointing towards property. So yeah, I kind of knew I was going down the legal route to become a solicitor, but I always knew I wanted to work for myself. And then it got to the point where yeah, I'm going to start investing in property. Started with that one, and then I packed up law to go and work for the local authority to learn about housing. And then that's when I started to build my own portfolio.
Okay. I mean, in the local authority, what were you doing for them? That's an interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny. Basically, I was just after a part-time job, and something was advertised where it was. I still remember this. It's a job share maternity cover housing officer.
All right.
And I only went to do that for 6 months. And while I was working in the office, I saw these housing officers coming and going whenever they wanted, basically, and their job seemed quite exciting. And what it was is they were given an estate of about 2,000 properties, and they controlled the estate. So it was repairs, it was tenancy matters, it was in meeting with tenants, contractors, and I quickly worked out I could actually learn so much more about every aspect of property Plus, when you're dealing with council tenants, sometimes it kind of toughens you up a little bit.
Mm.
Rent arrears, everything. So that's when I fully decided to leave law and try to get that housing officer
Wow.
post. Yeah, and then long story short, from there, I then set up a lettings business part-time from home. So I was running a lettings business part-time from home while working full-time in the housing office for the local authority.
Blimey heck. I wondered where your kind of ability to manage everything yourself came from. So that obviously kind of plugs into that somehow. So, I mean, the vast majority of people, when they run their own portfolio, tear their hair out with how hard it is, and arrears and repairs, and Sophie ringing up saying, "Can I change the bog roll holder?" and all that stuff. But your philosophy of the way you do stuff is completely, it's the antithesis of that, isn't it? You are very much the lifestyle investor, and you do it as a lifestyle rather than you.
Yeah, I mean, I do now. And a lot of that came from lockdown, really. That's when I started to document everything and understand why do I do things the way that I do things. But going back to working for the local authority, it was quite funny actually, because it got to the point, because people say I'm going to become a full-time property investor, and I always question why.
Mm,
When you need to actually put that amount of time in property, that's when you think of giving in work. And it got to the point where I used to use a telephone service to take calls from tenants and interested parties. And then I would get a text, and I was actually, the final straw was I was in the local authority and a disciplinary actually for having so much time off. And while I was in front of the manager in this disciplinary, I actually got a text saying that my viewer had actually turned up and the property was across the road. So I had to excuse myself, said, "Can I go to the toilet?" Went downstairs, out of the back door, did the viewing, came back in and said, "I've got a really bad stomach." And then that evening I decided it's time to leave the full-time job now and really just focus on the lettings business.
wow.
Yeah, it's starting to get a little bit too close.
I mean, that's brilliant. That's something Philip would do.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you had so much rascal in you, Mark. Yeah.
Oh, back then, yeah, but yeah, but many moons ago.
Wow.
Fantastic.
So you were having too much, so it was a disciplinary, and then you nipped out of the disciplinary meeting to do the viewing.
Yeah, and I was the first one. I think I was the only one in the local authority as well, where I had a new manager, and he signed me off on paternity leave, but he didn't understand the rules fully, and I managed to get 6 months paternity cover. And so I used that to really push the lettings business, and the lettings business, because my catch line in those days, because it was just before the internet was taken off, was no VAT, because we were quite a small business, and that used to bring in so much business.
Right.
And then that's when we decided it was time to actually get some premises. And then that's when my partner, she gave up work as well and came to work in the business, and it really just started to fly. And that was back in when I first discovered lease options.
Right.
And then that's when I really started to get involved in proper property investing, because before then it was buy one, do it up,
Mm.
sit on it or sell it. But then after that it was just scaling quite
Wow.
quickly.
So
Mm.
tell us about that first time that you came across lease options. How did that
Well,
happen?
Yeah, so up until then, property education wasn't what it was. You had to really go places because there wasn't the internet as such. I think we were just starting to use email. And I was reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. I really got into. Can I just actually digress and go into
Of
that, how I
course.
started
Yeah,
in
yeah.
business? Yeah, so I was reading the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, and it tells you about starting up your own business and property, and it just made sense at the time. And on the Friday when I was reading that book, I was standing waiting for my chips at the chip shop, and they had a free newspaper. It was called Loot, and I was just sifting
mm.
through that, and it had a little advert saying start your own lettings business for £450. So I actually sent off for that, and that's how the letters business was started on that Friday from reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it literally was a folder, an A4 binder that arrived, and that's where the letters business started off.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, completely off tangent. When I was at medical school, I was really shy. in my first couple of years. And I always, back then there was no internet, was there? And there was always adverts in the back of stuff that you had to send off. And I can't believe I'm admitting this, but at the end of my first year, I was kind of thinking I should be doing better with the ladies, and I didn't know how to approach them. So I sent off for this thing about confidence, and I got this thing back, and it was like typed up, hand typed, this book about how to talk to women. And I'll tell you what, it changed my life. It really did, because I suddenly like dropped my inhibitions, and I found that if you just talk to people, people talk back to you, even in London. And it really changed my fortunes. But there we
Do you
go.
know, I've probably got that book on the shelf somewhere. I never threw books away. Yeah.
Did you ever have that problem, Philip?
To be honest, the person I am now isn't the person I was years and years ago. If you allow me to digress, when I was 15, I wasn't confident at all. I felt that I needed to acquire some skills. I went to a window sales company, Anglian Home Improvements, and signed up to be a door knocker and to introduce myself to people. And I practiced my pitch. I still do it now. Hi, I'm Philip from Anglian Home Improvements. We've been speaking to your friends, neighbours. We've given them some fantastic deals on windows, conservatories, and doors. And I went with the presence of mind to improve my confidence. And the first door I got to, I knocked on, and an old lady opened the door, and I started to cry. And she's like, "What's happened? Are you lost? Has someone died? Has there been a car accident?" All these things. And eventually said, "Oh, do you want to come in?" I was like, "Yeah." Came in, and she gave me a cup of tea and some rich tea biscuits. And she said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Well, I'm the only reason I'm doing this job is because I want to be more confident, and it's not going very well." She said, "Oh, go to the next door." Well, the next door I cried at as well. In fact, the next 3 days I cried at every door. But I got through that and became a lot more confident as of a consequence for the experience. And then 3 months later, I was the top sales negotiator for that role in the Southeast. But
A lot of biscuits.
Yeah, not biscuits, but no, I wasn't always the individual I am now. No, yeah, now I speak to anyone, But
that sales pitch would still work. People go for the sympathetic side. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I wasn't protect. They weren't like crocodile tears. That was like full on. Oh God, I'm so embarrassed. I don't know how to say anything.
That's kind of back to your question about the experience with the first lease options. I went and I did a 3-year course. It's about £36,000 back then, really expensive down in London. And I had 3 days learning about lease options, and they teach you a certain way, certain terminology like babysit your mortgage and sit down and have a biscuit and a cup of tea with the vendor and go through all that. And I finished on a Sunday night, and I came back up and I had my first appointment on the Tuesday, and it's with this lady. I thought, I'm going to pitch this lease option. So I actually sat down and I went through the biscuits and the tea and everything, and I was there for absolutely ages. And I was trying to explain the lease option. But when I was actually sitting through the program, all that was going through my head, they were going through all these examples and approaches. All I could think of was, this will allow me to make a really low offer, but then before they get angry or annoyed, I can say, but there is a way that I might be able to offer a higher price. I still use that now, offer a higher price. So I did that, and she was quite offended. And I said, but there might be a better way. And then I started to explain the lease option. And in the end, she actually said, "Do you know, that sounds far too confusing. I don't understand a word you just said. I'll go with your first offer."
All right.
And she went with my really low cash offer. And I remember sitting in my car outside the house trying to work out what had actually just happened. So I got a really, really good price on that. But my first lease options actually came that week. I'd set up an estate agency by them. And a vendor would come on and basically was saying to the staff, if you can get these sold quickly, I'll pay everybody an extra bonus. And that just led to three lease options, because I had time to actually sit down with it. But I also understood how to actually start communicating by email at that point, because they don't understand a word that you say, like the lady. But when you can actually put it in an email, and from then on, that's when I started doing it, because they can understand it a little bit. And you understand it a little bit more when you take that time to write it out. So yeah, my first 3 lease options were in the first week, and that paid for the £36,000 course. And then obviously that's been paying me ever since.
Yeah, wow.
Awesome.
Now, for the people listening that may have a bit of property knowledge, and to those that have no property knowledge, could you explain what a lease option is and what your take and the way you use lease options is? Because there's a subtle difference, isn't there?
Yeah, so for the average person, they think that you buy a property, so you're going to pay stamp duty, the extra stamp duty, and then you'll normally use a mortgage, so you'll leave 25% in the deal, and then you hold on to that property, and then perhaps after 5 years you'll refinance it on the mortgage. But in all that time, you're receiving the rent and you're responsible for the property. A lease option or lease purchase option is exactly the same, but you don't buy the property at the outset. So what I'm going to do is on the date of exchange, I'm taking control of that person's property, and it might be for 5 years. But the big difference is I've not had to buy it. I've agreed a price with them, but I've not had to actually buy it off them at that time. I've got up to 5 years before I decide whether to buy that property. So from the date of exchange, it's exactly the same as though I have actually bought that buy to let, only I've not paid stamp duty because I've not bought it, and I've not had to take a mortgage out because I've taken over their mortgage payments. So, a couple I've got going through at the moment, literally, I'm just taking over the mortgage payments and I'm giving them £3,000 on exchange, which is a little bit of spending money. So whereas, before I'd have to go through an application for a mortgage and pay the stamp duty, here I'm basically acquiring a buy-to-let for £3,000. So in 5 years, I'm going to get profit from 5 years worth of rent, and I'm going to get 5 years worth of capital appreciation as well. And then at the end of that 5 years, if that's what I've agreed, I can either buy it myself at the price I previously agreed, or I can just go to an estate agent, put it on the market, find a buyer. The buyer will actually be buying off the original vendor, because remember, I've not completed on the property myself. But anything above that price that I agreed 5 years earlier, I keep as profit.
It's
So
such an
it's a way
elegant way of
where you
doing
can
things.
actually acquire properties very, very quickly and with low money down.
And I can
It
hear
allows you to
people,
scale very quickly.
I can hear the audience saying nobody would go for that. And who on earth would do that? But Philip, does it work?
It does work. To be honest, a lot of what Mark, I did Mark's mastermind, I think it was 18 months, 24 months ago. And it's amazing having this tool set to be able to work with. I used to put just one offer down. That would probably be a below market value offer. And maybe if that person was motivated and needed money quick, that might entice them. But for people that wanted closer to their asking price, it didn't. So now, like a lot of the offers I put on properties for us recently, I'll generally put 4 different offers on. One's below market value, one's a 2-year lease option, maybe a 5-year, maybe a 7-year, maybe longer. But they've got different caveats and different amounts I might be paying as an initial consideration, and maybe different monthly amounts. But yeah, what I find is that it gives you what I've learned via Mark is just a toolkit that supports every possible scenario. Whether it's someone that's needs certainty, someone that needs speed, or someone that is has a real fixation on a price or a value that their property is worth. So yeah, it's phenomenal, and I find that the success rate I've had since has been far higher. You'll be pleased to know as well, Mark, the last 7 properties I've had accepted, I have not viewed until the offer has been accepted. And that was a very difficult thing to do, because Mark is brilliant at what he teaches everyone about valuing your time. And when you really think about the value of your time, when I used to drive to Wales when I first started out to do 20 viewings, put lots of offers on, have knockbacks and things like that, was how I started out. But now, doing what I do now, it's so much better. And I find now as well, because we've completed, or Jennifer and I, my wife and business partner in a different business, have completed on properties, those agents now trust in the process that we've created. They know we deliver, but they know that, they know what we're asking for as well. So now I had one sent across to me today, Andrew, someone who hasn't completed on a property. Would we mind having a look at it? She sent me pictures of all the property, but she's also sent kite marks of the windows, the consumer unit, the picture of the boiler, all things that a normal agent wouldn't do, but we've had that relationship to make that work.
I told you I was a top student, Mark, didn't I?
And on the back of that, actually, Mark, we've we obviously go to lengths to incentivize those people that support us, but we give them the option of whether it's champagne or they have silver, or whatever whatever they prefer.
Everybody wins with Philly.
But no, it's such an all-encompassing way of doing things. And as I say, it was kind of life. It was career altering in what I do in property for us, with Jennifer, with everything, that you have those options. It isn't for everyone. I remember someone who I bought our house from, that I'm in now, 4 lockups, and sold a lockup with them, some commercial property. And she loved doing business with me. And whilst I was doing Mark's course, I put an offer on a bungalow. I went there. The chap that I walked around the bungalow with actually then ended up telling me what the price it had previously fallen through at. So then I was able to lower the asking price, but then do what would have been an assisted sale. The person I met with was very happy with that. But then when I put the offer through, I was called a charlatan, a thief, a snake, and a number of other things. So obviously you have to kind of educate an agent. But the ones we work with now, fantastic. But yeah, Mark, that is like a complete game changer. Not viewing anything until the offer's been accepted, and then I think everyone knows exactly where they stand.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people want to become full-time property investors, because if they think I've got to view 5 properties a day, or I've heard some silly numbers, 100 properties and you get 10 offers accepted. I'm thinking, what an entire waste of time, and cost in the travel. But that's why somebody would need to become a full-time property investor if they're actually viewing all these properties and putting multiple offers in.
Yeah. But you do it a completely different way. But just to rewind a step, because this all sounds really too good to be true, as the cynical people would who are watching this would probably think. So who are these people that are willing to transact in this way? What kind of property owners are they, and why would they do it?
Well, if I just refer to the ones I've got going through at the moment, there's one landlord where he's got 17 properties. The tenants are all paying below market rent because he's become friends to them over the years. His concern is that the first deadline's coming up for the Renters' Right Act, and everything's changing for him. He's made his money on the properties now. He doesn't have any mortgages on the properties at all. What's incentivizing him, and this was actually brought to me by an agent, what's incentivizing him is what I'm effectively saying is, from the date of exchange, which can be in 5 weeks' time, I will become legally responsible for everything. All the tenancies, or the repairs, or the costs, the maintenance, the voids, you just get to walk away from the property. But you're receiving X amount of rent now. From the date of exchange, I will still pay you that amount every month. So in his mind, first of all, he's not got to contact the tenants or explain that he's selling. He's getting exactly the same amount of rent coming through, but now it's going to be more profitable for him because he's not got any costs associated with that property. I've agreed a 5-year term, so I'm going to obviously make the rents over the 5 years, because the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put them up to market rent, even if it's in stages, and then I'm going to have 5 years worth of capital appreciation. Plus, I've actually got a favourable price now, because as he understands, and the agents explained to him, is that if you actually try to sell that property with that tenant in situ and with that low rent, you're not going to get the same price as if you try to sell it on the market with vacant possession. Plus, you might need to just redecorate it a little bit, tidy it up. So what that landlord is able to do in this situation is literally just walk away from exchange and still receive the same amount of money. So it's a perfect solution for him.
And how does he access his capital then?
Yeah.
Is that important to him?
Yeah, another one I've got going through at the moment. There's 3 beneficiaries. it's a probate property, and they've had the property on the market for a while because often these are dated and they need a lot of work doing to them. So, you know, they get silly offers. And all I've said to them is that I'm able to pay you a certain amount, a lump sum, you know, whether it's £5,000, £2,000 on exchange. But what I'm happy to do also is to give you £900 a month up until we actually complete on it. So what that means is the beneficiary is going to be receiving £300 a month each now, plus they've received the amount on exchange. All I'm going to do is go in, I'm going to refurbish the property, get it to you know, a good standard, and then put it on the market to sell. They get a price that they're happy with now, and then I benefit from any increase in price from doing the work. But the incentive for them to do that is, first of all, I'm giving them a slightly higher offer than they can actually achieve at the moment. But what they're really focused on is that they're now receiving income from that property when they've waited so long, plus a little bit of a lump sum, so they've got some spending money now.
Yeah.
So there's numerous reasons why people would do these when it's actually explained to them and they understand the benefits.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people go wrong, and agents as well, is they don't understand why would somebody do this rather than just selling the property. But if I say to you, and this is another one I've got going through, you know, Mr. Vendor, Mr. Landlord, when you sell this property, you've got to pay your capital gains tax within 60 days. However, this way I can pay you, you know, X amount per month for 3 years, whatever we agree. And you won't be paying capital gains tax on that until we sell you know, until we complete in 3 years' time. So the incentive for that particular person is that they actually get to delay their capital gains tax.
Yeah, it helps. And this is the thing, you know, it's this Dunning-Kruger thing that people immediately think, oh, nobody would do that. But that's because you don't understand just the size of the market, the number of people that have got properties that may be problems for them, that they may need to exit. There's a million different reasons why people would want to get out. It's not as simple as somebody sat there in their home needing to sell it to move into a bigger house. It's just, you know, there's a lot more to the property market than that. It's just that people seem to think that that makes the majority of the market up.
Yeah, and you're providing solutions as well. And what Philip touched on earlier about putting the multiple offers forward and why we do so well is that suddenly you're able to actually make them an offer that's not a below market value offer. So suddenly you're very different from every other buyer out there, and you can offer multiple solutions to the same sale. You can pay them a different amount on exchange, £1,000, £3,000, £5,000. You can agree a higher purchase price. You can agree 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 years. The key is you give them options and let them decide what works better for their situation. Sometimes they'll ask you a couple of questions and then you can direct them. Or I often say, you know, we're generally looking at optimizing the sale for both of us. What do you think would work best for you? If they say offer B, then I'll say, but you know, the implications of that are that you're going to pay higher tax. If you went for offer C, you would reduce your tax. So I'm working with them to get them the best deal rather than a buyer just trying to get it at the best price.
Yeah. And how do you, I mean, the next question that follows on then is that if people are willing to do this, where do you get your leads from? And that's always a chicken and egg situation. So you've got an interesting way of getting your leads. You've touched on it already.
Yeah, literally all mine come from estate agents and letting agents now, because I've spent time educating. And it's like Phil said, once they've worked with you and they understand how you can help, and it's more how you can help their clients so there's no conflict of interest and they feel comfortable putting your offers forward, then what they'll do is they'll start bringing you the offers. So I had one yesterday, actually. I've worked with them before, I've educated them, and they've come forward and they've told me exactly how much money their client needs out of this sale. So it's not the price that they're hoping to sell it for, it's the amount that they need out of that property to allow them to buy a property that they've seen that they want to move into. And the figure's 31,000. So if I can give them £31,000 on exchange, that will allow them to buy the property that they want. they're no longer really bothered about the property that I'm buying that they're in at the moment. So whether I agree 2, 3, 5, 7 years makes no difference to them. I'm taking over their mortgage payments and all the expenses on their house, so they're not concerned about that property anymore. And that was just one that was brought to me by the agent yesterday. But literally all of them now generally come from agents, estate agents, letting agents, property sources, because all they really know how to do is below market value. So when that's rejected, they tend to come to me. Referrals of other clients that I've actually worked with, and it's a case of an email. I've got a friend that wants you to do something similar as you did with me. Would you be happy if I passed your email on? Because not many people get my contact number. Everything has to be done by email, because if they've got the choice on whether to phone you or email, they'll phone you.
I hate that.
So, from very early on, it's a case of you'll only get me by email, because it's such a better medium to use, because you can reread things, you can ask questions in your own time.
Yeah.
But yeah, most through agents at the moment.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And it must take some time to build up to that relationship. I mean, we're finding that, it's all well and good thinking, I'll just go and do it. But, there's a process and you've got to be realistic. It does take a bit of time.
Yeah, once you find that right agent, so it's a bit hit and miss. And I've worked with people on this, because they'll come back to me, and this is so common. The agent isn't forwarding my offers. The agent, they've said that the vendor's not interested, and we know that the agent's not forwarding the offers on. So sometimes, and this worked with a group member, where I said to them, well, phone on Saturday, because you're probably going to get different staff there. And they phoned on Saturday, and it's a Saturday girl that answered the phone, and he just said, would you mind forwarding the email on? She had no problems with it. She sent the email to the vendor, and on the Monday morning, the vendor had actually emailed back saying he is interested and had 4 questions that he wanted. Yet the other agent in that office was saying that the vendor wasn't interested. So you might find that right agent on your first email, and if they understand it, then you just work with them and say, this is the scenario that I'm looking for. Do you have any properties that have been on your books longer than 4 months, that have had a sale agreed more than 4 months ago but hasn't completed yet? Would you mind just sending me a list of those properties? And then you click on the links, look at them, and see whether they suit your investment plan. And then you've educated that agent to send you literally 8 to 10 leads.
And I suppose, Philip and I have definitely found that, if you're already in property and you've already bought through agents, you've got some relationship with them already. So it's easier in that regard to send them an email and say, remember me, I bought X, Y, and Z off you, and these are my requirements now. So you can get in a little bit quicker that way if you're already in property. But if you're from a standing start.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that's changed a little bit, because I always thought that before it's better to try and build that relationship with the agent first and then start emailing them, but it's too slow. So, if you're on a database and you just get the standard email coming through saying just on the market, contact us if you're interested, you've got a name at the bottom of that email. This is new, Phil. You've not done this. So you get a name, and all you do now is you go back to that email address using their name. You go down the list of their properties to find out the ones that you're interested in, and then you send them maximum of 3 to 4 and ask them just a couple of questions on each property. What's the reason for selling? Can you confirm if this is a rented property, an ex-rental? And what they'll do is they'll email you back 4 or 5 short responses. And then what you'll do is you'll go back and you'll ask questions based on their responses. And before you know it, you've got that email rapport building, and you'll sense very early how much they're willing to work with you. If they're quick with the answers, and they're keeping it short and to the point, you're already starting to detect their personality type. And what you'll do is you'll start educating them. You'll go back through their list and say, can you tell me a little bit more about this one?
Yeah, fantastic. And this whole communication by email and the way that you do things kind of leads back to the lifestyle investor way of doing things, which is not wasting your time going on many different viewings. And so one of the things that I really wanted to talk about that goes back to your point about being a full-time property person was the lifestyle philosophy. Because I think that's one of the most, people are obsessed with the way you do your property, but I think one of the most important things that you practice is the lifestyle aspect of it, as evidenced by your wonderful home and your library behind you. So tell us a bit about what lifestyle means to you. I mean, anybody that looks Mark up, look at his profile picture and you'll see something about lifestyle just on his profile image. So tell us a bit about what lifestyle means to you and how it fits in with your investment plan, Mark.
He's a charmer, isn't he, Phil?
He is that.
Yeah, so the lifestyle investor came about because I read a book that a lot of business people would have read, the E-Myth Revisited, and what that says is that the business is there for you. You're not there for the business. And I've got a business background, so that's the way I look at things now. Is if something's going to take too much time, or too much money, or even too much energy, mental fatigue, I'm not interested. Doesn't matter how much money it will make, because there's easier ways to make money following, the way that I do things. So if I get too long an email, I know I'm actually not going to read that. I'm just, is it mental fatigue? They say decision fatigue. Okay. So what that means is that people get used to communicating with me very short lines, one or two bullet points, nicely spaced. And if it's somebody that I'm working with and they get used to emailing me like that because they're going to get a quick response, this is what they start doing with agents and other people. So you start to cut the waffle out. So basically, the reason I like email is that, first of all, I only spend 290 minutes a day on property. It's scheduled in my diary. So the emails will come through and that will dictate my workload. I've got to reply to those emails. If I've got a lot of properties going through, if a solicitor emails me, that dictates, right, I need to spend a little bit of time answering their question, and then that one's still progressing. So I don't have to keep going back into records. The emails will come through to my phone, and some of them I can actually answer from my phone, but sometimes I think I'll deal with that when I'm at my desktop. But this is the thing, I'm not spending time looking through properties. I'm not on the phone trying to find the right person to speak to, asking questions, waiting for them to get back to me, even answering phone calls. Everything's got to be done by email because it frees up so much of my time. And it's like I could take on a big refurbishment, but if I've got to go to the property and I've got to actually work with contractors and I've got to deal with bridging applications, that's far too much effort. It would be better for me to joint venture with somebody that's doing that. And my job is to raise the finance, provide some of the finance, negotiate the deal by options, by email rather, and, instruct the solicitors or the letting agent at the right time. So they're the ones that are doing the heavy work. So I joint venture with people on HMOs and I joint venture with people on developments just because they're the ones that have got the expertise and can put the time into it. So it's really just remembering that, they're there to support my lifestyle and I'm just doing what I enjoy. I enjoy negotiating the deals and I enjoy doing it by email. Anything else, and it takes away from my lifestyle.
And what is in your lifestyle? What do you spend your time doing?
My lifestyle, do you know what? I was thinking I might actually put a post on how I spend my day. So it's very fixed up until 3 in the afternoon until I finish off with the school run. But I'll spend 2 90-minute sessions on work. So it's either property or something else that I'm working on. I fit an hour learning the guitar in a day at the moment. I'm fitting an hour learning the piano a day. I spend time exercising. I'm more in the garden now because we've got the surroundings around us. And I read a lot and I'm kind of into meditation. So it's kind of living off the land type of thing. It's building the right environment around me and it's spending the time in that environment. So that might be where it is. I want to design the garden in a certain way. We've got horses now. I don't want to spend time with the horses. My partner's kind of the same now. She's into beekeeping, into art, makes candles, crafting, but it's all because we've built this ecosystem around us. you see. But again, everything's done by email, because whether I'm in the garden walking around, my phone vibrates and I look at it, I'm still there, but I don't have to spend the time on it.
Phenomenal.
I was going to ask something, Mark, and this is something that you inspired me with. Andrew and I talk about this a lot, financial literacy, and I was quite lucky as a kid. My mum was quite financial literate, and she, made the lengths for us to invest or to save. And when I worked with you on one of the second of your courses, we looked at the network calculator, and then you very kindly got me a copy of the Jim Rohn book. But a lot of the people that I know who are in a position to take up property don't take up property for a number of reasons. And I think that's because they have beliefs about money that they need to unlearn to scale. What would you recommend people do to avoid that mentality with them trying either to start off in property, or they've got one or two and they're trying to do something maybe that you've done, or even Andrew and I have done, other in property investors have done?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because I've actually spent time thinking about this, and a lot of it comes from the material that you're reading. When you go through different stages of your life, as I'm sure both of you appreciate, you naturally gravitate to different learnings, different readings, and then you'll read something and that will take you in a different direction. So I'm kind of working a lot on sort of like the subconscious now, and the mindset and things like that. I've always had a positive mindset, but it's a kind of a go-getting, goal setting mindset. I like to tick things off. I'm very sort of like scheduled like that. But what I've started to appreciate more recently is that you don't have to put all that work in. The subconscious mind starts to work at it, and this builds your beliefs. And what I've started to understand now from the people that I've worked with, or the people I speak with, or estate agents, is it's basically their belief, what they think is right. So when it comes to your question about, money, most of the beliefs, and literature states this, comes from your parents, because that's what you see and that's what you understand. So it's conversations that they're having, it's whether they're working, and a personal example is with my first daughter. I was employed, so I had time with her after hours, but you've never got much energy, but they get used to you being available at weekends. With my second daughter, I now had my business. So suddenly she grew up thinking, well, he works through weekends and in the evenings as well. And that's what they're picking up on. But my third one, because it was more or less property investing, and I was financially free by then, she sees me taking her to school every single day, bringing her back every single day. I'm at home when she comes home. I'm at home. I'm not working at night or weekends. So those three have been grown up and developed very different beliefs in finance. Because I used to say never work for anybody else, but now I say, because I've changed, is you work for somebody else if you enjoy it, but make sure you've built the assets so you've got the choice whether to make that decision or not. And that's what the beliefs are like. The beliefs when it comes to property investing is that you have to buy a property. You have to put that 25% deposit down. You have to actually have built up a deposit, built up a good credit rated. You have to have a HMO for cash flow or serviced accommodation. You have to do commercial conversions, because that's where the real money is. There's no money in flips anymore. It's basically built on their belief system. And what I found when I'm working with people is that often the belief system is what's letting them down. They can put the emails together, they can identify the property, they've even got the rapport with the agent, so they're doing everything right. But in the back of their mind, they're still thinking, this doesn't work. And I can actually sense it. And if I can sense it, the agents can sense it and the vendors can sense it. So it's all going to, and it's easy once they've done one or two and then the floodgates open. It's like the agent, their belief is that why would anybody do this? I don't understand why they would agree to, wait until they get their money. But they're not understanding things from the vendor's point of view. A reason that the vendor doesn't often accept your offer is just because he doesn't know the solutions that you can offer them. So it's all going to come down to what you think that works, and then it's just a case of learning something different. So if I sat down with somebody and we just agreed 3 property deals through an agent, and they only have to put £2,000 down on each, and they've been through the process and instructed solicitors and seen how it works, suddenly their belief system has now shifted. And now they've got a testimonial or an example that they can use when they're explaining it to others. But the big difference is, and this is what goes back to your question, is they now understand and believe that this works. And once you've done these delayed completions, these lease options, very, very rarely will you ever go back to buying property a conventional way, because and I kind of point this out to vendors, is I'd rather pay you £11,000 more than the £11,000 go to the government on stamp duty. That's my genuine belief, is that why would I pay money to a third party lender or the government when I can pass that money on to you and you can benefit from it? You're the one that should profit from your own property. So my belief system when it comes to property over the years has developed to the point where if I put an offer forward and they say no, I am genuinely gobsmacked, and it's down to I've not explained it correctly. I've missed something here, because this solution is the perfect solution. And that's where the belief starts to change. Once you've started to go down this approach, you never go back to the traditional or conventional way of investing in property.
You can't put the
It
genie
will
back
come
in the
from the
bottle.
parents a lot of the time. So two of my daughters that are over 18 are both on lease options. They've never bought a property the conventional way because they've never learned that.
Yeah.
All my daughters provide angel finance to investors because they just assume that's what you do with your money, whereas a lot of children will leave money in their bank. So it's just, that belief system.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. And you see that with everything, that it is your beliefs that hold you back. People talk about abundance, the feeling of abundance or the philosophy of abundance. Well, actually, it takes time to develop that. It's not a switch you can switch on. You've got to see something to believe it. And my first ever experience with that was many, many years ago, and it was, and I did an exchange with delayed completion on a pair of flats that was owned by a landlord that wouldn't sell because the landlord who owned them had just been put in prison for recordings of people in his guest house that were staying in his bedrooms, and he got caught and put in prison. And the word was out, and one of his properties was for sale, and nobody would buy it. But I wasn't bothered. So I went to him and I offered him a small deposit, tiny deposit, and complete later. Then I refurbished it and refinanced off, and he got his money, and it was a no money down type of thing for me. And
Did you keep the cameras?
Did I keep?
Fortunately, I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Yeah. The police kept them, but fortunately, Philip and I, we've got a security company now. We've got an abundance of cameras. But and it was from that point that I thought this works. You've got to. Sometimes you've got to see it to believe it, haven't you?
Yeah, and a perfect example of this is that somebody that I worked with for the first time, but they were actually on my program, and they do a lot of direct to vendor leads. They used to back then, and they had one come back, and it was from somebody that owned a hotel, and they thought straight away this is too big. So they passed me the lead, but because it was in both our areas, I said, well, let's joint venture on this one. And it was a 13-bedroom, 13 ensuite hotel, fully operational, had everything in, bed sheets and towels, the works. I had a separate flat attached to it, lots of parking, and we agreed a lease option on it. And all we had to put down was £23,000 on exchange. And all the vendor wanted is, first of all, he didn't want to run the hotel himself. He didn't know how to sell a hotel. And he just wanted £3,000 a month, but he didn't want the void costs as well. It was a rent to rent that had actually gone wrong. So all we did is agree to pay him the £3,000 a month, and the property wouldn't be void. And that's what was agreed on. So this was a 13-bedroom hotel where we agreed a delayed completion for literally £23,000 investment plus legal fees.
Yeah.
And what we did, we never did much with it. Within a week, we'd agreed a lease with a rent-to-rent operator, service accommodation company, and we signed a 3-year lease with them. So they just took over and paid us a guaranteed rent. But, you know, the belief was, this is too big for us. You know, we do HMOs, but we know nothing about a hotel. I know nothing about a hotel, but what I know is I know lease options. Let's just see if the vendor's interested.
Yeah.
So now, you know, we would look at hotels every day, or every day, blocks of flats, because we've done them.
Yeah. That's what we're looking at this year, isn't it? Blocks of flats and
It is, yeah.
other stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. So
Yeah,
go on, sorry, Philip.
no, it's fine. We've got some shops with tops and some kind of planning to get other additional flats incorporated into that as well. They're quite exciting. I suppose I think we'd try and tackle most things. One post I did recently was like a call to action post, which I think you commented on, Mark. And it's been amazing how many people have contacted me off the back of that with property that is vacant, or people that had been following what I'd been doing and wanting to invest or potentially buying some property from us. We've actually got a chap who Andrew and I have done some buy, refurbish, refinance. They were low offer of deals accepted, and we've refinanced out of them. But we're doing a reverse lease options for them to purchase, which is for them it was really exciting. They have got some money with us presently, but actually they wanted some capital appreciation as well. So we're going to get an upfront fee. They're going to get some rent. We're going to get some rent, and then in 5 years' time, they will acquire the property at a lower rate of stamp duty. And I think, to be honest, we're actually going to offset any capital gain because the purchase price will align with all our inputs into refurbishing the property. So yeah, it's a win-win all round. Don't get me wrong, I'm very up for paying what is my relative tax. Obviously, I'll try and mitigate and manage it as best as possible. But I don't really like to volunteer too much of it because I don't think it's spent that well.
No, and what you've said there to some of the audience will sound very complicated, but it all comes down to basically, rather than just pitching yourself as a buyer or even thinking of yourself as a buyer, think, you know, approach it, you know, there's a deal here, but how can we make it work for both of us? And you use the term, it's a win-win. When an agent's involved, what you're doing is you're creating a win-win-win because the agent's getting their fee earlier, you know, it makes them look good as well. But you're just, you know, these creative structures, it is just a case of saying, right, this is the price he wants. How can I actually get to that price on terms that will actually work for me as well? Whereas when you're just putting an offer in, it's either there's the figure, yes or no. There's no working with them at all.
Yeah. I think that whole philosophy it's changed how we've done things in other businesses, isn't it, Andrew? Where, you know, some of the stuff that we're doing in our other businesses, how we're structuring the payment terms for anyone that's buying a service or a product from us. We're incorporating deferred payments. We're supporting them with getting access to finance. You know, I don't know, it like you say, creating wins for people, I think means that everyone's much more likely to want to proceed. If you make things easier for people as well, I think something that I was certainly guilty of before I worked with you in the capacity of your mastermind was talking the hind legs off a donkey, you know, and now, you know, being more disciplined with using email or using it as messages, because my go-to, like you said there, would always be to talk to Nata. But actually, the best impact from anything that I've learned to do via yourself has been from putting it in email. Some that I work with are insistent on doing it via WhatsApp, which I don't mind. But yeah, email or WhatsApp, but like you say, something which you can refer to, and it doesn't become like Chinese whispers when you're having to explain it to someone else. Because you've forgotten parts of it or you didn't understand it. Some people might be embarrassed to ask again. Whereas if they've got that in writing, like you pointed to, you alluded to, it just makes everything so much simpler.
Yeah, and going back to the lifestyle approach, what you're doing is you're actually building up your own database, your own library of email templates, because you'll think that's similar to a previous deal that I've done. If you've saved it in a separate little folder in your inbox, you can literally go to that email, copy and paste, change it slightly, but you're actually building up templates that you know how to work or that you can amend so that you start to optimize them. So again, going back to the lifestyle approach, it's a time saver because now it's copy and pasting rather than keep generating new emails.
Do you mind if I ask something as well? Actually, when we did your mastermind, you talked about how you took back, and I saw it on listened to it on another podcast where you took back the management of properties, and then you set it up yourself, so that people, your tenants, essentially, you were the agent, and you utilized email and things like that, and you had your own maintenance team to run things, and you worked it down to about 20 minutes a day. That's massive, because systems and processes is something that you're obviously amazing with. Andrew is fantastic with. I'm a bit of a cretin, as Andrew would tell you, but I think a big thing for me that I've really tried to work on is systems and processes. But from your perspective, what systems have saved you the most time or sanity? Because I think that's quite a big thing to talk about.
Yeah, so again, I've considered this because what I'm doing is I'm starting to document a lot of stuff. And where it originally came from is, as a letting agent, when you're managing other people's properties, you literally have to keep notes on everything. You have to document it to protect you, really. And also you've got other members of staff that are accessing the same records. So somebody phones them up, they can go to that information. So when we sold the first lettings business, it was quite an easy decision about our own personal portfolio. We would just put it into another one of our businesses. But then when we finally sold the last lettings business, the decision came, and I think we had about 90 something properties then, is do we pass management over to another letting agent? No disrespect to letting agents, but they'll never treat a property like their own. You know, they'll just phone the contractor out and get the job done without asking too many questions. Or do we self-manage? Now I'm in lifestyle investor mode at this point. I'm thinking, do I really want to self-manage? So the first thing I did is I went online, looked for an off-the-shelf package. Where I used to get the letting software from, they didn't offer it to private landlords. Bought something off the shelf which cost me £125 a month, and literally uploaded the property details. But the first thing that I did, because if you think about it, all the tenants of those properties, and there's over 100 now, had the letting agent's contact details, so they would always phone up. The first thing I did was send out a mail merge explaining that that sale had gone through. You know, I represent the new landlord. I never say that I'm the landlord. I'm always a representative. If I'm meeting a surveyor, you know, on a title split, I represent the landlord. I'm never ever the landlord. Okay. I represent the landlord. All communication must now be by email. So they've never got a contact number from day one. And I'll use letting agents now to find new tenants, but as soon as I take over management, they've never got my contact number or WhatsApp. Now, this might sound controversial, because what if a tenant needs to get hold of you in an emergency? All the emails will still come through to my phone. So if I judge it to be an urgent one, like on Boxing Day, I had one come through where the boiler didn't work. I had a gas contractor that lives around that area, and it's an easy job. So I just sent the message on to him and he went round. But if it's non-urgent, the email will get replied to within the next couple of days when I'm sitting on my laptop as part of my 90 minutes. Okay. And what happens is the tenants will get used to the fact that if it is urgent, you will get back to them straight away by email. If it's non-urgent, they will still get a reply back from you. So the big thing is that they've never got your contact details. Now, how it evolves is that sometimes you'll educate them once, but then they do everything right the next time. So if the washing machine's not working, they'll send you an email. They'll send you a photograph of the washing machine, including the model number, and they'll have Googled what the issue is, and they'll be saying it's come up with such and such a fault, which suggests. So they've gone to all that work now, and all I do is I'll send that email on to a contractor. I could give the contractor emails to the tenants, but what will happen is they'll just contact them all the time, and it'll become too easy for them. Now, I've done this since 2021 now, 2022, and it works perfectly, because they'll only email me on important issues. They'll send all that information to me, and they're 100% confident that it will get dealt with. And from a systems point of view, because I'm not wasting time on chasing contractors or chasing tenants or phoning and leaving messages, that narrow little bit of time that's left can just go into forwarding that email onto a contractor. The contractors will always get paid the next day when I get the invoices come through. So they will do the work as quick as possible. They're the ones that arrange all the access with the tenants. I'm not involved in any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it will literally come down. It's not even 20 minutes a day now. It's probably around, the last time I checked, it's 45 minutes a week.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, but as soon as somebody, it's like when you're dealing with agents or investors, anybody, as soon as they've got your phone number, they'll get into like a WhatsApp conversation, and before you know it, you're replying to them straight away. When it's email, you control when you respond.
Yeah, I mean,
I actually learned some of that from my solicitor, and that I've used since 2012. He will always, unless it's an urgent email, I will get an email just before he finishes at 5:30. So I don't have to chase. I know that I'm going to get an email around about 5:30. If it's urgent and I put an urgent on it, he'll reply to it straight away or as soon as possible, because he knows it must be urgent. Otherwise, I'd be happy to wait until the end of the day. So people get used to your way of working.
Awesome.
that's brilliant. I mean, the whole phone call thing, really gets on my tit ends. Like everybody, everybody wants to speak to you. You know, people ring. People will say, "Have you got 5 minutes for a quick call to discuss this?" No, I haven't.
Yeah.
You're not even telling me what you want to discuss. You know, why am I going to pick the phone up to you to have a chat about absolutely nothing? Tell me what it's about in an email, and if I can't answer it in an email, and if I'm interested, yes. But
What will
otherwise,
also happen is they'll think when they're typing something out, they'll actually think about what they're putting. They'll be a little bit more concise. There'll be a lot less waffling there. I've got people now that will email me, and they will know whether I can tell whether it's come through by their phone, because the language on an email done through the phone is different from if they're sitting at a laptop. So I will automatically give more credence to an email. So I will always say never ever communicate with an agent or a vendor through email by your phone. They can tell it's a different feeling. It's how it's presented. Okay, but it's business. At the end of the day, property is business. So I would expect somebody to be sitting at a keyboard. That's why I don't like WhatsApp for business. And urgent things, yeah, quick things, yeah, but not offers and when I'm trying to explain something. But I understand, Phil, why some people will insist on it, because that's just the way that they work.
yeah, I don't mind WhatsApp so much. It's I much prefer people telling me what they want, uh, rather than this vague notion of having a call. You know, it only be 2 minutes, but you'd not even said what it's about. Do you know what I mean?
I
And
now know why you invited me on here, Andrew, so that I stopped doing my 55, 60 calls a day.
well,
That's
there is that. And so the other thing, Mark, is that I've got this thing on my phone where only certain numbers will actually ring through. Everything else
Oh,
gets screened, and there's certain numbers, one of which is Philip, and he's on thin ice at the minute because over the last week he rings me up. Oh, like this morning, I had 2 missed calls from him whilst I was out walking the dog. I came in, just rang him straight back in case. Oh God, what's
whoa,
happening?
whoa, whoa, whoa! 20 minutes later. 20 minutes later.
All right, 20 minutes later because I was out with the dog. Pick the phone up in case something had happened in one of the businesses. What's up? Oh, I've forgotten what I rang you for now. It's the third time in 2 days.
Noted. Duly noted.
It goes through everything. It's not just my time that I want to protect. I don't like anybody's time wasted. It's like, I had to have 5 EPCs done in a block of flats, but some of them aren't needed for about 6 months. I've said to the EPC guy, just get them all done at the same time because it's better for use of your time. And I had a bit of a going to and fro with somebody that replied to one of my posts at the weekend. I put that you don't need to view properties, and I explained why you shouldn't view properties until your offer's been accepted. Massive game changer. And an agent actually posted back saying, well, you won't get any properties off me then. And it went back and forth, back and forth. And you can follow. And I was very professional at explaining it why. And then I actually explained, and they gave me an example of somebody came in and they went through everything and they put an offer in which was, below market value. And I said that in those situations, every vendor that you phone up will say, what was the point in viewing if they weren't going to offer a price that I was going to be happy with?
Yeah.
Okay. And I flip this. So I'm selling a couple of properties with agents now. And I used to do it as an estate agent. Because I generally sell to investors because, that's how I package them up. So I put tenants in, that kind of thing. I say to the agent, get an offer before they even view that property. Because if they're an investor, they can go on, see the photographs, they can do their own research, they can give me an offer, and then it is subject to viewing. So if they get there and they definitely don't like it, no problems. But unless they can indicate what they're going to offer and it's close to the price, there's no point in viewing it, just waste your time. Okay. And you need the agents to understand that. And they'll say, but they'll want to view before they can make an offer. And I generally think, but why? You know what a property is worth before you go out. You can see all the photographs. What are you actually going to see that's different? So again, it's this big time saver thing.
Yeah. It's almost work for the sake of work, isn't it? At the same time.
Yeah. But now I do explain this, but as an estate, and this is how you work with some estate agents. So if you're speaking as an example, if you're speaking to a negotiator and they're saying you have to view the property, let's think of this from a business owner's point of view. Okay, so they're getting out of the office for a good hour. They're driving to the appointment, listening to the music on their stereo, probably having a cigarette in the car, sitting down there, getting early so they can just sort of stay out of the office and doing work while they're waiting for somebody to do the viewing. Get the viewing done, open the door, shut the door, sit about in the car a little bit more, nip to the shop, buy a chocolate bar, come back. They've been paid for all that time.
Yeah.
Now, that same person that's viewing, if that phone call came through to the owner, it came through to me, I'd be thinking, well, I don't want to waste 2 hours worth of paying somebody and not having them in the office, so I've got to answer phones. It's a different mentality. So sometimes you want to go to the owner of the business because they'll understand the benefits of actually putting the offer forward without you viewing. But most of all, they'll appreciate you thinking of things from their point of view. And obviously, you're coming across as being very, very different from other investors that just want to view. And the worst thing you can do, and this is controversial, is sit down with an agent and have a cup of tea and have a chat. It's a wasted time for everybody. The negotiator will do it. The valuer won't because their time's too precious. The business owner won't do it if it's a decent business. So it doesn't help anybody. And generally, estate agents don't really like investors until they've actually bought a property from them and they know they can work with them.
Yeah, that's because
Might be a bit controversial, that.
No, I love that, and
it's true.
Yeah, it is true, and it's because there's so many fall off these free crash courses to be, to ring the agent and say, "Hi, I'm a property investor," and that the agent in the back or at the end of the phone must be rolling their eyes. Oh, another one that's fallen off a training course. Until you've actually transacted, you're not. So,
I did actually have to speak to somebody the other day. It was a Saturday. I had to phone them because it was a generic email. And I'd promised somebody that I was working with that I'd have this email ready for them so they could send it through. But it's got to go through the same email. So I literally just phoned them up. And the conversation was, could you give me the name of the best person to speak to about some properties I'm interested in buying as an investor and their email address? Can I register your details? No, I really just want their email address. Can you tell me exactly what you're after, what properties you're interested in? No, please just give me your email. You're busy. I just want your email address. Okay. So they put me through to they were getting a bit flummoxed. It was obviously a Saturday person. They put me through to their sales valuer. And I started to explain to them exactly what I've just said. I really just need an email. Is yours the best email? Why can't you just give me the properties you're interested in? Because I don't want to waste your time. I'd rather put an email and then you can get back to me when it's convenient for you. And he said, that's really good. He says, I'm a valuer. He says, I'm out of the office most of the day today. Here's my email address. And I got the email back on the Monday. Okay, but he's seen that you're respecting their time rather than tying them up. So he'll just see you as being a little bit different.
Yeah. Being memorable is really helpful, isn't it? In whatever way you can do that.
Not as helpful as the email address.
No, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to rewind a little bit again there, completely off topic, because you mentioned what you do in your spare time. And I wanted to know, so I knew that you were learning the piano and I also knew that you're learning the guitar, but what is it about instruments? Why is it that you're trying to learn, and how's the guitar going specifically? But what is it about that
Yeah.
made you do it?
So the guitar, this is another example of lifestyle investor mentality. All right. What I decided is I'm going to have some guitar lessons. So I found somebody that was local, so I've not got to travel far. I can get some steps in. And I sat down there and I had two-hour lessons with them. And the whole hour was just trying to play the strings. And I don't know whether you've ever played guitar, but if you're not holding the wires properly, it makes an awful noise. So
Yeah.
basically, for an entire hour until my fingers are nearly bleeding, I'm trying to make these chords, well, not even chord, just a wire sounds right without a twang. Okay. And I just thought I've just spent money on 2 lessons and 2 hours of my time, whereas I could just learn at least how to do that in my own time before I then go for a lesson. So
Yeah.
what I do now is I go to an app and the app takes you through and you work through an app. And then at some point, perhaps I'll need those future lessons. But I bought this guitar and it was so uncomfortable to play with that I found myself not doing it.
Yeah.
And then I went online and because it's quite bulky, it's normal guitar, quite bulky, and it hurts your fingers. And they said you can buy a smaller guitar. And I thought, well, that's like a kid's guitar. Okay, that's a bit embarrassing. But then Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift used them. So I thought, right, I'm going to get one. So I bought this, it's called a travel guitar because it's smaller and it is so comfortable to use. I've been playing it last night for an hour and a half because it's so comfortable.
Yeah.
So I don't know because I don't know any guitar songs. I've started to download them. I just always like the idea of a guitar.
Right.
But the piano, I just when I hear piano, people playing piano like Elton John, but they're just playing piano and they're playing the piano solos. I just always like the idea.
Yeah.
And then I like the idea that I learned piano when I was at school a little bit, but I used to just slam the tempo, so I used to slam it down. So I bought an expensive piano this time so that I treat it well. And what I found is it's like meditation now, because even when I'm getting things wrong, it's just let it go, try again.
Yeah.
It's like a calming thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going really well. I've not particularly got any aspirations. I've set some figures, some songs that I want to learn, but it's just this whole thing. And again, I realize how I'm changing. I always like to be progressing on something through life. If it's things in the garden, like I'm building like a reading area and meditation zones, you have to wait for the weather before you can work on it. But a piano and a guitar, you can play at any time. And the guitar you can actually take out with you now if you want to chill sitting in a forest or something, whereas obviously you couldn't do that with the piano. So it's just constant personal development. But the difference is now is it's not a financial thing. It's like it's just a personal growth. But if I can make money doing it, I'll busk. I don't mind. I've always seen money as like it's a counting thing. If I can go out and come back with 15 quid from playing on the street, I'll remember that 15 quid because I've made it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a self-taught guitar player. Once upon a time I was half decent, and I actually made money busking the Millennium on Sucky Hall Street in Glasgow. I stood there on Sucky Hall Street every day. I had basically a fortnight off medical school, and I went up to Glasgow and busked through the Millennium and made a fortune. People and like it was brilliant.
And do you still play now?
Well, I haven't really picked it up for about 20 years. I was all right, and when I say that, that's probably me being modest. I was okay. Now I'm shit compared to how I used to be. So my wife bought me a guitar building course. So now every month or so, I go for a full day up to a place near here, and I've chosen the wood, the tone woods and everything. I'm in the middle of hand building an electric guitar completely from scratch. So at the minute I've got all the woods clamped up and I've got a fretboard that I've just cut this weekend, and I need to choose the pickups and stuff. But to your point about easy things to learn on, a classical guitar, like a nylon string guitar, is such an easier way to learn, because when you first start, the thing that stops is the cheese grater effect of having a beginner's guitar. The action's so high, it's quite difficult. And I never learned to read music, so I saw you and you inspired me to learn the piano. So I've got a piano off the back of one of your posts, and I thought, right, what do I want to learn? And at the time when we bought it, Taylor Swift was touring, and my wife was listening to this song called Champagne Problems, and it was Taylor Swift. It's this quite a simple 1, 4, and 5 chord circular thing that she sings this song over, and it's all on the piano. So I thought, if I can get to learn that, I'll be happy. Well, it's quite easy to learn chords if you don't have to read the music, you just know the shapes. So I got to
Yeah.
Champagne Problems after about a week, and I've not played it since. So, but that's it. But another thing, sorry to dominate slightly, the other thing that I've got into, and I can't
I
stop.
can feel a band forming.
Absolutely, yeah.
Playing
Well,
down in Chelmsford.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll be Bez on the maracas.
You can play the triangle. But the one thing that Philip's got me into, which I never saw coming, was chess. Do you play chess, Mark? Because
I've
that is
stopped playing
addictive.
since I played Phil. Yeah.
Oh, you've stopped, have you?
I was playing him online for a little bit, but I'll say this, Phil, it's not the same when you're sitting in front of
No,
someone.
it's
You don't
nowhere
you don't
near.
concentrate the same.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Did
Maybe we'll have
he?
to have a freeway game or something like that when you visit on the 21st.
All right, yeah, good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that'll be good. Did he lure you in and say, "Oh, I'm all right," and actually, it's some child prodigy that?
No, I think I was just bragging, and he said whatever he said, I would just assume that I could beat him. That's my mentality. And then the first few, I'm thinking, oh, he's fluked it, and then I'm thinking, actually, no, he's really good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think we must have played about 500 games and I've managed to fluke one win or something like that. But
Yeah, it's one more than me.
well, I didn't stop until I got to beat him. You see, that was the difference. So we've taken plenty of your time up, but if people want to find you, Mark, and they're interested in the stuff that you teach, which like I said at the start, I don't endorse anything on this podcast, but I do endorse your stuff because it's incredible. Where can they find you?
Yeah, no, that's good of you. Thanks. Facebook, really. I think that certain things appear on Instagram, but I don't generally post there. But in Facebook, just find Mark Shaw on Facebook. Message me if you want any particular information or advice.
Email only.
I did discover by accident on YouTube, because somebody told me that all the previous podcasts that I've done, and there's been a few with Property Filter, are on YouTube. So if you just put Mark Shaw Property on YouTube, you'll see some of the Zooms on there.
Brilliant.
So
Excellent.
yeah, but Facebook is the best place. Thanks for that.
Brilliant. And I'll put the links in the show notes on YouTube and on the various audio channels that this goes out to. But honestly, that's been I feel quite inspired actually. I feel ready to go and attack the day.
I know I'm going to go and look up Champagne. Yeah.
Champagne Problems by Taylor Swift. For you, it'll be too easy, but because you're well advanced now. But thanks very much for coming on, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. And thanks, Phil. Good to see you again.
And
see
you
you on
too.
the 21st.
Can't wait. Can't